I'm Ryan Milliken from Hardway Performance, and you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
This is Jaron Holder from Holderdown Performance.
This is Anthony Rings from XDP.
I'm Dimitri Miller with No Zone Diesel.
I'm Drew with D&J Precision Machine.
I'm Pinky.
And you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
Diesel Power Podcast.
Diesel Power Podcast.
And you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
The one and only Diesel Power Podcast.
We have to thank all of our subscribers, listeners, and customers out there for supporting this podcast. Guys, keep tagging people and commenting on who you want on this show. We are 4 for 4, and we will keep the streak alive. Our guest today has been tagged more times than we can count. If you own a Duramax or Cummins, you know this man's tuning skill. The man, the myth, the legend, Kory Willis of PPEI. Want to win a PPEI swag pack? We've teamed up with Kory and are giving them away for free. Check out our Facebook page for all the info on how to get one. If you have any questions about products discussed on this podcast, hit us up on the Street Diesel Power Facebook page or at www.streetdieselpower.com. Well, hey Kory, wanted to thank you for coming on the Diesel Power Podcast and sitting down with us today. We definitely appreciate you being on.
Yeah, man, for sure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to chat a little bit.
Oh, no problem at all. We'd asked who people wanted to be on the podcast next, and a ton of people hit us up and they wanted you on here to talk about tuning and talk about your company. And one of the questions that came up the most was, how did you get into the tuning and the diesel industry?
Yeah, for sure. That's cool. People want to hear what some little guy like me has to say, but I got into tuning by basically I'd been into diesels since I was 12 years old. I always wanted one, but I knew I'd likely never have the money. So like anyone else, I bought a little Z71, and it was a gas, and I tried to make it fast, and all my friends were older. They had diesels, and I got smoked all the time. So I knew something had to change. So I just worked really hard. I've been self-employed with a little business since I was basically 13 years old, just doing anything I possibly could. I'd buy and sell guitars, I'd sell amps, you name it, whatever it took for me to make, a dime. So I ended up, whenever I turned 17, I had enough money and was able to purchase a 2005 LLY. And the truck was great. I tried to stack a Edge and Bully Dog, and I did all of that fantastic stuff. And then they said, hey, you should get EFI Live for it. So I ended up putting EFI Live on it from a local tuner, and the truck ran okay, but it had its issues. And basically, I got really, really interested in how custom tuning worked and whatnot. I used to hook up the edges and stuff in my friends' trucks, and was just really into it. So I ended up just like anyone else, Google and forums and everything else, trying to dig into how EFI Live worked, what it was, and then I found out I didn't know anything about diesels or tuning. We actually ended up getting the software, and I played with it. I was able to find out how to get on various websites and find the operating system that goes in the truck, and just overall got obsessed with the way the truck's computer operates. So I ended up writing just a small little tune for the truck, and it just kind of progressed on from there. I was working on that truck for, a year and a half or so, and it was just a hobby. So that was around 2006, 2007, something like that. And that's how we got started into it.
Now, as far as the entrepreneurial spirit and the passion and the excitement for the trucks and the tuning, I think a lot of guys out there and gals have that passion for trucks, but they can almost be intimidated by the industry as far as how large it is. What kept you going or pushed you from the point of starting to getting to where you've gotten today?
So with that truck, I kept plugging away at it, and it became a very fun hobby of mine. I had the software a year and a half or 2 years before we were really tuning anybody's trucks with it. And it was just local trucks. And a good friend of mine, Eric Stelly, had an LMM that actually was really fast for back in, I guess 2010, maybe 2011. I'm not sure, but he put huge turbos on it, everything else, and the truck was a low 11 or high 10-second truck. And I played with that truck, played with it like crazy, and ended up really learning a whole lot about tuning from that truck. It really helped me a bunch. And a lot of people back then were saying, well, you can't do this with an LMM, you can't do that with an LMM. And I had all the time in the world to just take and work on it, 12, 13 hours a day. So we just kept working on it, plugging away, and learning a lot of stuff that people said you couldn't really do on them back then. And this was before I was really on the internet or anything like that. The truck got pretty popular, and I'd gotten approached about reselling the tuning. And I said, I'll never, I can't really see where anybody want to resell this. I never thought it had grown into what it is today. But sure enough, we ended up starting to sell tuning to various shops and was able to create a small dealer network with a friend of mine, Willie Parsons. And we started building up all of these resellers, and I was able to get a little bit of finances, and EFI said, we're not going to tune LMLs. So this is where things really started to change. And I wanted to progress further. So we got an LML, and we started plugging away at it. The only thing at the time was an H&S that you could put on it, which was amazing. They're so ahead of their time, it was unreal. But I spent all my money that I had made on basically software and hardware, and I bought all the wrong stuff. You name it, I did it. And I figured out that, okay, we have to work on this in basically a hexadecimal format. And, man, I started working literally, I would say, 18 to 20 hours a day, and I did that for months. I was slapped, absolutely beat. And at the time, I was the only one pretty well with my company, me and my wife, and it was absolutely miserable, to say the least. We plugged away at it, and finally I had a tune that we never said anything about it or anything like that. And when EFI heard that we were working on it, we said, hey, you know what? We need a flash device for this. We really want to work with you guys for being able to tune these. So EFI generously and very thankful to Ross and Paul and EFI Live crew for stepping up and saying, hey, we won't provide a tuning platform for them because we don't think it's going to be very economical, but we will give you a flash device and you can import your binary images into our software. So it was at that time that EFI allowed us to put the tune in the software. And I heard you interview Ryan before, and Ryan Milliken. I told Ryan, I said, hey, with this diesel class, I want to introduce a new form of LML tuning to everybody. I said, we'll do it with my truck on your dyno. And that was back whenever he had All-American Diesel Performance. That's the name of it. And so with the EFI class, we put it on, and we made over 500 horsepower with the truck. And that's where everything changed. That's where we introduced that we were going to work with the EFI Live and send all these tunes out to everybody with that platform. But I was still broke from all of the software and everything else, the purchases. And then come to find out, just whenever I thought I had a tune that was perfect for an LML, we tried it in the next truck, the same tune, and then all the ABS and brake lights and all kinds of crazy stuff come on. So it's like starting all over again. Just whenever you think you have it, you don't have it and have to start from the very bottom. So we ended up just plugging away for hours and hours and hours all over again, trying to figure out how all of that worked. And I was able to talk to some really, really knowledgeable people in the industry on how operating systems and segments and all of these cool things work. And we were able to really do some cool stuff. We were able to take and figure out the top speed limiter on an LML without losing the cruise control button. That was really cool. Put non-VGT chargers on them. It was a good time in the industry, learning how to actually create something new whenever they said it couldn't be done for the most part. Anybody, I'm telling you, anybody can do anything they want to do if they work hard enough at it. I'm a prime example. I'm not the smartest guy out there by any means. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm the best tuner out there, but one thing is that we won't stop until we figure something out. And if someone just has the old school drive and old school work ethic, anything can be done. It doesn't matter how much money you have or anything like that. You just have to work extremely hard. So to get into the industry, you see all these big players and you say, man, there's no way I can get in and I can compete with these guys. Well, you can. You just have to absolutely work day and night nonstop on social media and marketing and videos and just anything you can possibly do. That's what it takes. So which doesn't take necessarily any money. It just takes time. So you have for someone to get in and compete with the big players, which I still don't consider myself a big player, but if you get in it and you invest absolutely all your time and you become obsessed with it, there's no two ways about it. You're going to succeed.
That's an awesome story and something that's inspiring, because a lot of times, as you mentioned, people think it costs a lot of money or you have to have some sort of opportunity that maybe somebody gives, but really you create your own opportunity. And you have to sacrifice your time and just do whatever you can as long as you can and be successful as you are and as you've made your company.
Yeah, Patrick, that's it. That's all it takes, really. It's just someone investing the time into themselves and having a goal and just saying there's nothing ever going to stop me from reaching this goal. I was sleeping whenever we were trying to figure out to stress out how hard it was whenever we were trying to figure all this LML stuff out. I was literally sleeping on top of I would work as long as I could until I would just start seeing all kinds of different colors for 18 plus hours, and I would fall asleep on my desk, and then I would wake up, at 6 o'clock or whatever the next morning and start working again, and I would plug around all day long and still trying to fulfill customers' orders and talking on the phone and making sure I got everything shipped out and make sure everything's done right. I was still plugging away at all this and would literally go, it sounds disgusting. I'd go 2 and 3 days without even showering. I would just sit there in my desk and work. Hardly eat anything. It was what I thought was a nightmare. But it really ends up working out in the long run, and at least it makes for a decent story.
Oh, definitely. And there's an art to tuning, and Milliken brought it up during our podcast, and I wanted to ask you, when you sit down with a truck and it has modifications to it or it's stock, what is the process you go through when you're trying to make a truck run better?
The first thing I look at, let's say, a good example is the Colorado. We just did that truck this week. EFI gave us the flashing capability, and we worked around all the tuning parameters. So what we did was we took with the truck basically bone stock, and we'll take our scan data or take to whatever it takes to be able to data log it. And we find out what the truck does bone stock to see what kind of torque limiters and all that other good stuff that we're going to be fighting. So I'll take the truck bone stock, and we'll hit it to the floor, we'll drive it around, and we'll see what issues or what torque limiting the truck has. And then we'll know, at what RPM limit it starts pulling fuel and all this good stuff. So the step one is find out what needs to be adjusted on a stock truck. And then next we start making tuning adjustments to where we get full fuel on the truck. And we're talking about stock trucks right now. And by full fuel, I mean whatever we desire the injectors to stay open. Let's say that it's a 1200 microsecond pulse width, how long the injector stays open. I want to make sure that if I'm commanding the injector to stay open 1200 microseconds, that it's staying open 1200 microseconds and there's not torque limiters in the computer pulling it back and not allowing it to hit our desired goal. So the first thing is we got to know what our desired goal of the truck's going to be, and then we start tuning it to that point. Once bigger turbos and bigger injectors and pumps and all the big modifications get involved, then at that point in time, the altitude plays factor in it. But if they put basically like a bigger VGT charger, first I like to understand how it works. So if the factory turbocharger spooled up quick with X amount of vane position, whenever we put this bigger variable vane turbo on it, well, let's start going up in percentage. I like to do 10-15% at a time on, like, say, what the minimum vane position would be to see how quickly we can get this truck to spool up. And likewise, timing and then the amount of smoke limiting, so to speak, on the bottom end, you got to have enough fuel to be able to put in there to spool it quick enough. So that's the kind of stuff that we look at, is what is our end goal of tuning this truck, and then we'll try to push it until the mechanical parts say that's all we have.
And with EFI Live and its data logging software, this basically allows you to do this for a customer anywhere in the country or even in the world, right?
I'll back up a second real quick. EFI does a really, really, really good job on these new Cummins. If you use the factory data tool to record them, the data is real sluggish, it's slow, there's a lot of PIDs that aren't there. What EFI Live does is EFI Live gives us the ability to make a CSP update, which is Cummins switchable programming custom operating system, that basically EFI takes the operating system and writes their own tuning parameters in, where you could select them on the fly and increase your horsepower by just a simple switch. Well, what EFI does with their scan tool is those custom parameters that they write into the operating system, they allow us to data log those parameters. And being that they wrote it themselves, they have a super high speed on the data. So whenever we're data logging it, we can data log exactly the parameters that EFI gave us in there, which are crucial to tuning, and it makes for some really quick and easy data logging and tune adjustments.
As far as the Cummins platform itself, it's new in the Cummins world, or new-ish, say compared to Duramax trucks, to have this custom tuning software. With the 5.9 and the 6.7, what has it been like jumping into that platform and making these trucks do things that were maybe considered impossible 5 or 6 or 7 years ago?
It's definitely it's a never-ending learning process, so to speak. There's still so much to be had on the 2010 plus platform. Even on the earlier 6.7 platform, you see guys still doing 5.9 swaps into them. There's just so much room for growth, and I hope we can come back and visit things such as RPM. That's the biggest thing we're fighting right now on the new Cummins 6.7 ECUs is RPM. We can get full fuel generally to about 3,800-ish RPMs, but after that, it falls off. And if you want more horsepower, people say, oh, you have to put a 5.9 ECU back in it. And right now, that is the case. But I'm hoping that we can work on it and EFI can work on it. And there's so many awesome tuners in the industry that someone's going to end up pushing it past that point, and we're going to be able to see the doors really open for the new 6.7 platforms. Coming from like the 5.9 or the earlier 6.7 models that EFI supported, it's kind of a different ball game with the 2010 plus. EFI for a while only had so many parameters and so many things that we could adjust. So it goes back to working day and night in hex trying to figure all this stuff out. So which I think I spent roughly 6 solid months working on the ECM and TCM tuning for the 2010 plus night and day again. And it really seems to be great. Things are working really, really well for people. We're able to get trucks dialed in really nice that were having issues before, especially for the 2013 plus platform. But there's still definitely more to be had. And with all the competition pushing each other, H&S used to say it best back in the day, competition drives innovation. So I'm just excited to see where all the new tuners and all the tuners in the industry are pushing each other and where these trucks are going to go.
The transmission tuning is very, very interesting. It's something that helps, especially these 6.7s with a 68 RFE or even an ASIN. What are you guys working on for transmission tuning?
For the Cummins platform, it's what we have out works really well. I've got some beta files out there that guys are running that's got like early third gear lockup and things like that. That's right now. I think most of us all have pretty well great control over line pressure. We can set the line pressure to whatever we want. Most of the built transmission manufacturers are wanting around 200 to 225 line PSI, where the factory pump valve body can only put out roughly 165 to 170 line pressure. So when someone orders a custom tune from us with transmission tuning, we set it up the way that we like the truck to drive. Some people say, well, you send out a lot of tuners, it's a box tune. Well, at the end of the day, anything can be considered a box tune. It's up to the customer to say, hey, you know what, I like the way this drives, but I would like for it to do this, or I'd like for it to do that. And at that point in time, then it becomes personalized to that individual customer. With our transmission tuning, I liked it to where the truck didn't really lug, and it wouldn't just get soaked down in fifth or sixth gear doing 40 miles an hour like we all know the Cummins do. It's not good for any hard parts. But we'll still have customers come back in and say, hey, I want the converter lockup earlier. I really like how the truck lugged before. And at that point in time, we'll change the transmission tuning up to more fit the customer's needs.
Torque converter lockup's very interesting on the 6.7s, or really any truck, but especially on the 6.7s. What are you able to do with torque converter lockup with these tunes?
Pretty much, I've got pretty well full control over lockup for 3, 4, 5, 6 gears. Second gear is something that I'd really like to get figured out. It's definitely on my to-do list. I'm not as familiar with the physical aspects of the transmission as I think some of the other guys out there, but I do believe that we'll be able to get this transmission to do pretty much whatever we want it to do for the most part within the next within the first quarter of the year.
That'll be awesome. For the Duramax trucks, to switch gears for a second, is we know the LML tuning you have is out there. Hearing great reviews on it, people are loving it. But you also do every other Duramax model from LB7 to LMM, and it has this same tuning suite or customization to it as well, doesn't it?
It does. The transmission tuning for the 01 through 2010, we got some pretty cool stuff for it. We can do early port throttle lockup, which is real nice. Second gear wide open throttle lockup, but we can't really control line pressure for the 01 through 2010 like we can our newly released 2011 Plus tuning, which comes with it's called an A50 controller for the Allison. And that's the one that we just released, and man, it's really blown up. People are having great reviews. It's working really well for their trucks.
We chatted with Dimitri Millard on transmissions, and he specifically mentioned your transmission tuning for the LMLs and how excited he is for that, and to be able to use that software in those tunes with his built transmissions. And that's where all this is going, is these guys that build the hard parts, they want your tuning to control basically their hard work and their creation.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, man. And above that, it's really humbling that a guy like me who started with really nothing, and besides awesome parenting and God's help, it's very humbling to me that these big hard work companies and reputable guys like Dimitri and Evident Limitless and Galvin's, all these Suncoast, all these big guys that actually will use us for stuff. It's just, man, it's overwhelming. It's very humbling, but it's very nice at the same time, because it kind of gives us a line in the sand that says this works. Whenever the bigger guys and the reputable people in the industry support you and back you up on our new stuff. So the 2011 Plus tuning, transmission tuning, really nice with the control over line pressure. It's great on a built transmission. It's really great, too, on a stock transmission. We had a truck on the dyno just yesterday that the customer came in. He had a compound turbo setup from Worley and 2 Exergy pumps on it. It was really, really, really nice setup. But he had a stock transmission, and I said, man, I don't know how in the world this truck's still going. So we dynoed at a baseline at 617 horsepower, and the truck did okay. It did great, but we put the transmission tuning in it, and we were really able to put the fuel to it, and ended up having 688 horsepower. I data logged the torque converter slip, and we actually had no torque converter slip at all, and we posted the video up and posted the results, and just really exciting, and blows me away how far all these transmissions and technology has come to be able to sustain that kind of horsepower. And we did it for 10 pulls. I'm sure it'll need a built transmission later on, but it's really neat to be able to see. Try doing that on a LB7 or LLY with a 5-speed, and I don't think it's going to make it too terribly far down the road for long at all.
You had mentioned something earlier that it really got me thinking, is this is a really exciting time in the diesel industry because of the new platforms that are coming out. And you talked a little bit about the Colorado. What about the 5-liter V8 Cummins or the Eco Diesel and some of these other engines? Are you able to play around with them as well?
Yeah, for sure. We picked up an Eco Diesel right whenever they came out, and really nice trucks. But they have their little problems and little quirks, and they're kind of a pain to tune. The ECU has a very, very tight encryption on it that's hard to tune with, hard to work with. Currently, there's no OBD support for the Eco Diesel. They actually have to send their ECU to us. We have to take the time and modify it and all that good stuff to be able to tune it. But we do. We've got, I like to say we have pretty good control over the EcoDiesel. A good friend of mine, Ryan Esposito, built a twin turbo kit for it and brought it to our shop, and we were actually able to take the truck from 212 horsepower to, I believe it was nearly 400, if I'm not mistaken. And it just blows my mind that this little motor can take this kind of abuse. We've seen Gail Banks do some beyond amazing things with the EcoDiesel. I think that's a platform that once people get a full grasp on the parts and how it works, that we're going to see a lot more of later on. The 5-liter Cummins, I want one. or EcoDiesel. Yeah, oh yeah, I want one bad. We actually inquired yesterday on trying to trade our EcoDiesel in on when we're trying to get our local shop here to get us the hookup. But we'll see what happens with it. Let's just hope that we'll be able to support it with tuning through the OBD versus having to actually do ECU exchanges or anything like that. I can't wait to see what happens with that engine. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I'm definitely wanting to learn.
It seems like a very interesting platform and creation that they've put in there, and it's created a ton of buzz from all the different shows and media releases, and just for enthusiasts to have a 5-liter V8 Cummins with some of the technology that's in it, and then once tuners like yourself get your hands on it, the magic that can happen.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. It's gonna be amazing. We actually have a local guy here that's wanting to put one into a bouncer buggy, like a rock climber type deal, and I said, man, this thing just came out. You might need to hold off a little while on trying to get all wild, but he's wanting to do twin turbo setup, parallel, all kind of crazy stuff. So it sounds like the buzz is already starting for people wanting to modify them.
As far as the tuning industry and the future of it, where do you see it going or evolving to from where it's at right now?
You know, there's things where they are now. It's progressed, unbelievably over the past few years. I think it's one of probably the fastest progressing performance industries out there by far. The gas guys, they all have a very they've been in this forever. So this is all new to us, and how fast it's progressing is blowing my mind. The way I see everything going is a little bit more virtual, a little bit simpler. Right now, the tuning suites and the tuning platforms out there is awesome. It's great, but I think the more we see, the more we see it progress, the more companies that are more associated with the Internet of Things are going to want to get involved with it. And we're going to see everything become a little bit more virtual, and that'll be exciting, and it'll be great for everybody. And then it'll be exciting to see with what all the current tuning platforms end up doing, because competition drives innovation. So I think we're just going to see it move forward and progress, but it'll probably get simpler. And if you had asked me this 2 years ago, I would have said, I think we'll be nearly locked out of ECUs. It's going to be nearly impossible to tune them. But then, GM comes out with the new, for the Colorado, it's got the E98 ECU, and then they come out with the new transmission controller for the Allisons, the T87, which is in-house GM. They use it for all kind of stuff, and they're not locked down tight. So I can't say that I think it's going to get more difficult to tune these things, as some of the New Year stuff has been a little bit simpler.
That has to be a fun challenge when these new platforms come out, and you've got to figure out how to get into it and make it do what you want. How long does that usually take, or how long can it take when something new comes out? You got to look at it, and you're starting with there's no roadmap on how to do it. You just got to figure it out.
Yeah. So when it's kind of a bittersweet thing whenever it's difficult. For one, for instance, the 2016 Duramax, I heard it was going to be just a little bit different, not much, and I couldn't help it. I had to go get one. So I went and got one, and I had it tuned within 40 miles, and I had twin turbos and all the good stuff on it within 1,000 miles. And the truck's got, I think, 2,800 on it now. But I wanted it to be tuned right then and there. As soon as I had it, I want the first one tuned, and it really makes it a lot of fun. But whenever I did it, I said, this wasn't too terribly difficult. I was able to do the 2016 to map everything out in hex. It took me roughly about 4 to 6 hours. So I'm pretty quick at it now, especially with these EDC 17 type ECUs. But sometimes we'll get our hands on something kind of like the Eco Diesel. It ate my lunch for a long time. That was a bad one. You just never know. It's good and bad. So if something's simple, well, great. It's simple. We're going to be able to do this with ease. If there's problems, we'll be able to fix it with ease. But that means that, competition and everybody else is going to be able to do it, over time with ease as well. So if we get one that's overly complicated, then, yeah, it's hard. We're going to have to work a whole lot of hours, but we might be able to have a competitive edge for a little while with, being the only ones. So it's a bittersweet deal whenever a new one comes out and we have to figure it out. I'll take it any way it comes. I just love tuning trucks. It's a lot of fun.
As far as 2016, what are some events or shows or things that you have planned?
So 2016, I have been running the whole diesel game and scene for quite a while. That's all me and my wife have done. We got married a little over a year ago. I better be careful with that. I might get in trouble if I don't know the exact term. But we still haven't taken a honeymoon. The business really takes up all of our time. This will be my first year that I get to actually do a couple of things that I would like to do. I have what I like to think the best employees, the best of friends, the best sales staff. I mean, everybody at PPEI is just amazing that I can actually be able to maybe take a little vacation this year that's not work related. So 2016, what I have planned, I plan on going out to Rudy's and some of the ODSS events. I plan on making a lot of that good stuff. But I also am pretty big into side-by-side racing right now. That's kind of something that's got me going. And we've been tuning those ECUs as well in-house. We haven't really released anything. We'll do them if they send them in, but that's something we've been playing with a bit, and I'm really having a lot of fun with it. And side-by-side racing is an hour-long race with a 30-minute practice session, and it's just full throttle, full bore, the whole entire time. So I plan on making a lot of those events along with the diesel events, and I think that's going to keep us pretty busy for 2016. My race truck, people probably say, oh, that thing still exists. It does. It still exists. I just haven't had time to mess with it. And we finally got it just about going. The Calvin's crew and SoCal, all those guys really helped out a lot on this truck. Put it on the dyno for the first time in 3 years with the new setup last month, and on the break-in tune with roughly 850 or 900 microseconds, which is basically like you take a stock tune for an LBZ and you chop it in half. That's practically what I had in it. And the truck made 800 horsepower. So I think it's going to be very competitive, and the chassis is going to be the limitation as soon as I can get it going. The intake's at Nitrous Express right now, and we actually ended up putting 8 nozzles on each bank. So it ought to end up being very interesting. We plan on going to some diesel events with it this year. I don't know if it's going to win, but we're going to go have fun.
How's it set up with the charger and just the powertrain and everything else?
Yeah, so what we did was I actually it has a SoCal motor. We did alternate firing cam. We put 2 big extra G12 mil pumps on it. HSP built all the turbos and all the good stuff for it, and Fleece actually built the 475. So it has a 475 and a 106, and it spools fantastic. We had the truck doesn't blow any smoke. It runs beautiful. You get the power to the wheels. Calvin's built us a 48, and it's stout. I think our limitation there is probably going to be shafts. So hopefully we'll get all that stuff figured out. I think the Calvin's guys, Brad over there, had something figured out to try to get them to live, and he was going to go work with Suncoast on it. So we'll see. Maybe there'll be some really good development on 48 stuff this year, especially with Milliken breaking them left and right. If anybody's going to figure it out, it'll probably be him. So hopefully we'll be able to keep it alive.
Now, for guys who want to check out and see what you're doing, new releases, check out the race truck, where can they see these updates from you?
We hit social media and the forums really, really hard. Instagram, PPEI_tuning, and we post lots of stuff there very frequently. A lot of customers' rides, a lot of stuff we're working on, upcoming releases, instructions, tutorials. Lots of stuff gets posted there. So I'd say the PPEI Facebook page and PPEI Tuning on Instagram is by far the best spots to see what we have going on.
Well, we really appreciate you sitting down with us, Kory. I've known you for a while, have a tremendous amount of respect for you, your company, the way you do business, your customer service. It's unparalleled. We know you're busy and got a ton of stuff going on, but we really do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to chat with us.
Man, I thank you for having me on. And I want to say something else too. It blows my mind that all the people that support us and all the good things that have come out of the diesel industry. I'd really like to see it keep progressing forward. To all the new guys coming in, you can do anything you want to in the industry. All you have to do is put your head to it, work day and night, and market yourself. Be confident in yourself. There is cutthroat and whatnot in the industry, but you don't have to do the cutthroat to get to the top at all. All you got to do is come out with something innovative and then market it and make sure it works. And you can get to the top for sure. So I just want to say thanks. And Dimitri had given a shout out on the trans tuning working. That's really cool. So I thank everyone that supports us, and especially you for having this podcast. Really cool.
Coming from you, Kory, that means a lot. We appreciate it. Don't forget, guys, visit the Street Diesel Power Facebook page to get in on the free swag from PPEI. We have an incredible lineup of industry leaders, racers, sled pullers, shop owners, and truck guys lined up for you. We want to tell the story of this industry and what truly makes it special. Keep telling us who you want on the podcast and the questions you want us to ask them. This is your podcast as much as it is ours. Until next Monday, keep the shiny side up.
I'm in my truck sitting out by a bridge, and I got all the water, and there was a freaking bird right when I was talking landed on my hood. And I'm sitting there trying to talk, and there's this freaking huge bird on my hood.
Like, don't scratch the paint, man.